Just prepping up these brake rotors for my new diff. These will be my new rear ones. The rotors are the same as what I'm running on the front. Hats are slightly different. I was able to pick them up locally. They're still Willwood ones, but I needed the holes taking out to 15mm to fit the studs on the new diff. Obviously multi-pattern. They're quite thick in the flange, 1/2 inch, but that will help space the wheel out. I've allowed for that in the overall diff length. But it's important if you're going to use these, I believe, for racing, because they come powder coated. When you buy, let's say, more expensive ones from other brands, they are just raw aluminium, and whenever I'm bolting something up, it's quite hard to get off, but I just did this with a razor blade and took my time, cleaned up all the surfaces that are going to make, so we've got metal on metal, and the wheel will obviously go on here, so it's still as good as machined, but you just take it easy and clean it all up nicely. In case you don't know, when you get around to doing these sort of rotors, if you haven't got a floating bolt set up to allow the rotor to move slightly, well, I'm assuming even if you have, you'll want to have, these are all pre-drilled for lock wire. You absolutely want to not rely on Loctite alone to hold these together. At the moment I'm just nutting them up so I can fit them to the diff, but you want to be lock wiring all your brake components for sure.
So we've dummied up the bush on the top and the top arm, and the angle's looking a lot better than the old one, but anyway, they will be passengers with the new setup, so we don't completely need to worry about that. It's just there to stop the diff falling over for now. The pinion angle, or the surface I'm working off of the flange there, is spot on. I've got 4.5 degrees at what will be my ride height. That's determined. I had to do it twice. When I dummied it up, I tapped it in the wrong spot here, so I just rotated the housing about 2 degrees. That's why we check these things, because my calculations, well, were correct to what I thought it to be, off the old Holden housing that I set the jig up with. But that's why we just tack things and check it. So anyway, that's where it's going to end up. We drop lined it both sides, and we're within about 1 mil full width off the centre of the mounts, which I have a centre line marked down the underneath of the car, so that all I've got to do is plumb bob off these marks here. There's one at the front, one there, and one at the very back. So unless the car takes a hit, that saves me getting under, and these ones are at the centre of the suspension points, so I'm not really concerned with where the body is, it's more where the suspension is. Yeah, so we're getting a bit closer. So tomorrow I have to mount the spring seats, which will dummy that in, because they need clocking as well. They were always, I'd had one go at them, but every time I mucked around with the diff, the angle that they're on compared to the angle that's up in the seat here, that so I'll just mount the spring up into that with a cable tie or something, and mock it up here, and just double check the width from a known spot, which will probably be the end of the flange there, and make sure both sides are right. Tack them on. I'll probably tack the other mount in, just using the arm off the car, and yeah, that'll be getting close. Then I'll show you what we're going to do. So this dummy arm here, which is just a piece of flat bar, is way too long now, but initially, so this piece will get welded onto the chassis. I'll calculate the angles correctly. I'll cut that rod so that, yeah, this will end up, you know, sitting up on the diff as it should in a straight line. Yeah, but that will be
I'll cut the rod to the right length, and all I have to do is clamp it in one spot. Then it'll be really easy to tack it all up. It appears the main thing I haven't got right at the moment is the distance from the centre line of the housing to the top here. It needs to be, basically to be parallel, will need to be this distance would be equal to the bottom mount, plus we want this to run downhill slightly, so my adjustments would go either side of that. So I'd suggest this will now be my top hole, and I'll put a couple more in here once I work out what those distances are, and then we'll tack all that up tomorrow. Then we'll be getting, if we can get that tacked on and the spring seats on, we can take it out, and most of this is going to get TIG welded. Anything that's onto the chromoly tube needs TIG welding. The housing itself is just mild steel, so that can be MIG'd, but probably while he's at it he'll just run the torch around it. But we'll bolt a head into it so it doesn't warp too badly on that face. And put the bungs in, and yeah, I was just looking at the old one, and got to remember that there's all the things like little tags for the brake tee, you know, stuff like that I need to remember to do. You know, they can just be MIG'd on later. I can do that all myself, but you know, it doesn't, these calipers won't need the flexi line in the same manner this does, where as this caliper floats, you know, it needs the ability to be able to move. You couldn't put a solid line onto these. The caliper 4 pots I've got will be a fixed mount. So anyway, got the diff back out of the car, just dimming out the brakes and trying to get some lines made. We've got our 3NT, and I've got some 45s coming. I'm still not able to finish here and get around the shop, but the brackets are all tacked. I've just got to put some plates in the back of here before I knock the bushings out. Yeah, we're getting pretty close to weld off. I'm hoping these calipers will be the answer, and I don't have to go out and sort something another time, but these are all brackets I made early in the piece. Everything's looking pretty good, so I'm going to dyno the shocks while we're waiting to get all this stuff back in. But yeah, progress. So I've left this thing in the jig. I'm just taking it down for weld off. I've managed to jam it in the back at my territory. I finished getting all these in, so hopefully he'll be able to clean them up as he welds, and then we'll knock those bushings out. I don't know if he'll need the jig, but I just thought if I leave it in there, it's something to stand it up on at the least. But next time we see it, should be ready to go in, and then we can get some axles.